Hi, in this tutorial we're going to look at making a tiling geometric pattern in Illustrator. As an example, I'll use the one that is in your instructional notes, creating this sort of honeycomb pattern um, to make a pattern like this that can tile endlessly. This will be similar to what you do for your limestone pattern in the second assignment in the course. So let me just start a new file and I'll demonstrate how to create these elements to make something like this. So first of all, we need to create the basic shapes. So here in the toolbar I can select the polygon tool and I'm just going to create one. I'm going to click and drag and hold down the shift key, and that will lock it into a sort of horizontal position, and we'll get the shape that we need. Now for this one we want to make sure that we have a black stroke, you can see down here, and a white fill. Make sure there's a fill, otherwise this won't work properly. Now we have to arrange these into the rudiments of the tiling pattern. You notice when I pass my mouse over my object, I'm getting these indicators of angles, and when I'm over important parts of the drawing. That's using Smart Guides, and you can turn that on under the View menu, Smart Guides, or hit Command U. And this is sometimes useful when we're doing this sort of thing. So what we need to do is duplicate and move this object. So using your black arrow, you're going to click, hold down Option, and drag. You can see it's made a duplicate, and I'm just going to move it until the edges line up. See? So they're sharing this edge. Now I may want to move in a little closer here so I can see what I'm doing. To make sure it's all lining up, I can see now that it's not quite lined up. So just move it so it's into a better position and repeat that. So selecting this one, Option, click, drag, move it to the right position. Again, it's not perfect. I can use my arrow keys to move it over a little bit, or I can just drag. No, that's better. Excuse me. Again, I'm going to click, hold down Option, drag. I can hold down Shift to make it drag straight down. Get into the position, let go. It's not quite right. You can see, oops, it's a little too thick here, so I can just move it up a little bit. Sometimes snap to point is turned on under the View menu, and sometimes it's a little difficult to maneuver, so I can turn that off till we get. It's going to be a little bit tricky sometimes getting it just right. Oops. Shift, select, hold down Option. You can see I get two arrows. That means I'm going to copy this and drag it to this position. Same thing. Click Option, or Option click, drag into position. So that looks pretty good. It's not quite perfect, but you can spend a little more time making it perfect. So here are the rudiments of our tiling pattern, and how do I know how much to create? Well, I have to think about if I were to take a section out of here and repeat it as a tile, how it would line up properly. So I want to include this central 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hexagon, and include this, but we need to include the lower quarter of this one, and of this one, the top quarter of this one, top quarter of that one, to make it tile properly. So if we have a quarter of each of these, we'll get the corner of this one from here, this corner from here, this corner from here, and this corner from here, and it will tile. And we tell Illustrator where to set the tile boundaries by creating another shape. Now before we go into that, if we look at the layer that we're working on and we spin this down, you can see that this layer is made up of a number of sublayers, and all these each one of these things is considered a path, and it has its own sublayer. We have to create one more sublayer, which just means making another shape, but we have to make sure that sublayer is right at the bottom. But before we do that, we're going to make some guides to make it easier for us to create that shape. So if you hit Command R, it will open up these rulers, and if you click in the ruler and drag, we can drag over a guide that will show us exactly where the middle of these peripheral shapes are. So you can see that let me just undo that. I just selected this object, gives me the bounding box, and these points here, these little squares, indicate the middle of the object. So if I click, drag, I can put a guide there. And I want to do the same thing over here, so I'll select this one, shows me this is the middle of the object, or the halfway point. Click, drag, put a guide there. And now we want to drag another guide here, and another guide here. So you can see it's made a bunch of sublayers, one for each guide. We're going to delete those in a second, but first let's make our tile border shape. So under the Shapes tool here, you can select Rectangle, and then just move your mouse over the corner of this one, line up, click, drag to the corner of the guides down in the lower right, and let go. See, it's made a box that is white fill and a black stroke. We have to turn off the fill, so turn the red line here, red line for the stroke, so no fill, no stroke. And then you can see that we still have that one selected, so in our layers palette, this sublayer with this path on it has got this blue highlight, so that indicates that this is the layer that we have selected. So I can just drag this sublayer all the way down to the bottom and let go. Oops, down to this line and let go. And so you can see that's right on the bottom. That's very important to do that. This is what tells Illustrator the boundaries of our tiling pattern is. The next thing we want to do is delete these guides, so just select one, then shift select the bottom guide here. You can just drag it to the garbage can. And now finally, to make a pattern, all we have to do is open the swatches palette here, use the black arrow, shift select or marquee select everything, and then just drag that onto the palettes. You can see it makes a new little swatch here for us. There it is. Now if I just create a new layer, move over here, create a new shape, then in the fill I can select that swatch, and it's filled with a tiling pattern. Now you can see mine is not tiling exactly right because it's a little sloppy. Now you can see it's exactly the same scale as this one, but now that we've created the pattern, we can scale it down. We can change the shape of the shape that houses this pattern, but if we want the actual pattern itself to scale down, you can go over here and select the scale tool, which is this one with the arrow and the two little rectangles. Click on that, and we can hold down the tilde, which is the one right above your tab button. Click and drag, and now you want to hold down shift after you start dragging to make sure it's square, and then let go. And you can see that the actual box hasn't changed size, but the scale of the pattern has scaled down. So again, hold down tilde, start to scale down with the left mouse button, clicking and dragging, then hold down shift to make sure it stays proportional, and let go, and you can see we're getting a more finely repeating pattern. Now you can see that mine's not perfect. You can see that one of these lines is too thick, and I'd have to go in and just fix that on here. Now if you want to change something in the original pattern, say you want the stroke weight to be a little heavier, then what you have to do is I'm just going to lock this layer. You want to select all the elements that you want to change the stroke, so everything except for the bottom sublayer, which has our pattern border on it. So the easiest way to do that is just to drag select around everything, and then hold down shift over this little button in the palette here and click that, and that will deselect the target on that sublayer. And then just go into our stroke palette and turn up the stroke, so make it a little bit thicker. You can see here this one's not lining up quite right, so I'm just going to move this guy a little bit if I can. It's kind of finicky. I'm going to turn off my smart guides for a second by hitting Command U. Just let me move it a little more freely. And now if I want to replace the old swatch, all I have to do is zoom out a little bit so I can see everything. Open up my swatches palette. Select everything here. And then click and drag, and then holding down the Option key. So I'm clicking, dragging, holding down the Option key and dropping it on that old swatch palette that I made, and just let go. And you can see that it replaces it with the thicker stroke. Now it's scaled down, so the stroke is also scaled down. So as you scale down, you may have to change this to scale up the stroke. So if I just deselect that one, I'm going to turn the stroke way up to make it obvious. Select all these elements, including the tile pattern border. Hold down Option, drag over here, and you can see it's updated here.